What happened to the singer who had everything needed to become a superstar, yet somehow remained one of the most under-recognized voices in modern entertainment? Loren Allred had the voice, the television exposure, a global hit, and eventually one of the biggest moments on Britain's Got Talent. But her career didn't follow the path most people would expect. She didn't disappear after becoming famous. Something much more interesting happened. Her biggest success arrived before the world fully understood who she was. Loren Allred grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, surrounded by music from the beginning. Her mother, Carol Allred, was a singer, and her father, Brady Allred, was a conductor. So Loren wasn't entering the music world without preparation. Singing was already deeply connected to her upbringing, and she eventually pursued professional opportunities of her own. But having an exceptional voice is only the first step. The entertainment industry is filled with talented performers who never get the opportunity to break through. Loren was about to find that out for herself. In 2012, Loren appeared on The Voice in the United States. She joined Team Adam Levine and stepped onto one of the biggest music competition shows on television. This should have been the moment that launched her into the mainstream. Millions of people could now hear her. Industry professionals could see her. The exposure was enormous, but Loren didn't win the competition. Her journey ended before she could turn that television appearance into the kind of career explosion viewers might have expected. At the time, it may have felt like a setback. Looking back, however, it was simply an early chapter in a much longer story. Then an opportunity arrived that would completely change how far Loren's voice could travel. In 2017, Loren became the singing voice behind Jenny Lind in The Greatest Showman. Rebecca Ferguson portrayed the character on screen, but Loren provided the vocals heard in the finished recording of Never Enough. And that distinction changed everything. Suddenly, Loren's voice wasn't just being heard by television viewers in a competition. It was being heard by audiences around the world through a major Hollywood movie. Never Enough became one of the most recognizable songs associated with The Greatest Showman. The soundtrack became a huge commercial success, and the song itself developed a life far beyond the movie. People shared it, performed it, covered it, and returned to it again and again. On paper, this looked like the breakthrough every singer dreams about. Loren had contributed vocals to a global hit. Her voice was now part of a cultural phenomenon. But there was a strange catch that would define the next stage of her career. The world knew The Voice before it knew the woman behind it. When audiences watched The Greatest Showman, they saw Rebecca Ferguson portraying Jenny Lind. They heard Loren Allred's vocals, but they didn't necessarily make that connection. This wasn't some hidden scandal or industry conspiracy. It was simply the way the movie's performance was produced, but the result was unusual. Loren had helped create one of the film's biggest musical moments, while remaining relatively unknown to many of the people who loved the song. That created a strange gap between fame and recognition. Imagine having millions of people hear your voice and connect emotionally with your performance, but many of them still wouldn't recognize you if they saw you walking down the street. That's essentially the position Loren found herself in. Her voice had achieved something close to global recognition, but her personal brand hadn't grown at the same speed. And that matters because the music business doesn't only sell songs. It sells artists, personalities, stories, and identities. Loren had one of those pieces in abundance, but not all of them were connected. Then came another major television opportunity. In 2022, Loren walked onto the Britain's Got Talent stage. This time, there was no movie character representing her. There was no fictional story standing between her and the audience. Loren was finally there as herself. She performed and explained her connection to Never Enough, creating the kind of reveal that television producers dream about. Viewers who knew the song suddenly realized that the singer behind that voice was standing right in front of them. Amanda Holden gave Loren the golden buzzer, sending her directly through to the live shows. The moment created a new wave of attention and introduced Loren to millions of BGT viewers. But there was an important difference between this opportunity and The Greatest Showman. The movie had made Loren's voice famous. BGT helped make Loren herself more recognizable. That distinction is one of the most important pieces of her story. And yet, even after such a powerful BGT moment, Loren's career still didn't turn into the conventional superstar story. There was no simple sequence where one television appearance automatically led to global pop dominance. And this is where people sometimes make the wrong assumption. If a singer has a global song and receives a golden buzzer, shouldn't they immediately become one of the biggest stars in the world? Not necessarily. Modern entertainment is much more complicated than that. A viral performance can create attention. A hit song can create recognition. But sustaining a major career requires constant releases, marketing, touring, industry support, audience growth, and a clear artistic identity. Loren's journey shows just how difficult that transition can be. She had already proven that she could deliver a massive vocal performance. She had already demonstrated that audiences could connect with her voice. But turning those moments into a long-term mainstream career required something beyond vocal ability. It required the right songs, the right timing, the right team, and years of consistent momentum. Talent can open the door. It doesn't guarantee what happens after you walk through it. There's another reason Loren's story is easy to misunderstand. When people discover her through Britain's Got Talent, they may assume she was simply another contestant who suddenly appeared from nowhere. But she wasn't. By the time she reached the BGT stage, she had already lived through years of professional experience. She had appeared on The Voice. She had become part of The Greatest Showman. She had provided the vocals for a song that became globally recognizable. BGT was not the beginning of her career. It was another major chapter. And perhaps that is the biggest twist. Loren Allred may not have failed to become a superstar in the way people assume. The definition of her success was simply different. Her voice reached millions before her name did. She became part of a global movie soundtrack without becoming the face associated with it. Then, years later, she walked onto a talent show and finally gave audiences the missing connection. This is the person behind The Voice. So what happened to the superstar Loren Allred was supposed to become? The honest answer is more complicated than a disappearance story. She didn't lose her voice. She didn't suddenly stop being talented. And there is no evidence that one dramatic event destroyed her career. Instead, her journey shows how unpredictable entertainment can be. A singer can get incredibly close to global fame and still find that recognition doesn't automatically become superstardom. Loren's story is really about timing. The Voice came first, but it didn't create the breakthrough. The Greatest Showman came later and gave her a global song, but much of the public still didn't know her name. Britain's Got Talent arrived years afterward and finally connected her identity to a voice millions had already heard. Each opportunity mattered. None of them followed the simple script people expect from a future superstar. And maybe that's why Loren Allred remains so fascinating. She doesn't need a story about failure to be interesting. Her real story is stranger than that. She became famous in a way that separated the voice from the face. She experienced major exposure without immediate mainstream superstardom. And when she finally stood on one of the world's biggest talent show stages, she wasn't asking the audience to discover whether she could sing. She was showing them who had been singing all along. So the next time you hear "Never Enough," remember that the voice behind it belongs to Loren Allred. Before the golden buzzer, before BGT, and before many viewers knew her name, she had already contributed to a song heard around the world. Maybe the question was never why Loren didn't become a superstar. Maybe the more interesting question is why it took the world so long to realize that it had already been listening to one.